A 4-song split between two bands that remind me massively of mid 2000s, like emo tinged post hardcore. The split is called Growing Into Bloom, and it features two of New Zealand's like up and coming post hardcore stalwarts. You've got REI, which is spelled REI. It's after an anime which I totally remember. Neon Genesis Evangel. That one. Neon Genesis something. That's gonna annoy me if I don't ask. Not Neon X Checker, fuck's sake. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yeah, that totally known anime, which I actually know is pretty popular, but I'm just retarded. So you got REI, and you got another band called Chasing South, which aren't named after anything as far as I'm aware, which makes it easier to explain. Both from Auckland. We'll start with REI. They were formed in 2015. They are a 5-piece, and from what I could find, they've only got one previous release, and that was a single called Knives, released last year. So they are very nubile, very fresh, very green into the music industry. Conversely, Chasing South, and we're going for a little bit longer. They formed in 2010. They are a quartet, like I said, also from Auckland, and they've got a middling discography actually. They've got 4 singles, a demo, and 2 EPs, and the most recent EP is called Carry the Weight, and that was released January last year. So like I said, 4 songs in total, 2 each. We'll start with the 2 REI songs. I'm kind of mixed with the vocals as a whole. I like the low end screams, but I'm not too keen on the dissonant style cleans. I think that's more personal preference, because I know a lot of people pop on that. When I was looking for things to compare it to, I kind of liken them to Thursday quite a bit in the vocal department, because they do have, from what I can tell with Thursday, they do have cleans which are a little bit harsh on the ear, but still in tune. Does that make sense? And yeah, kind of had the same sort of feeling with REI. The first song, Blossom and Bleeding. I keep saying right now, don't I? I've just noticed it. I'm sorry. It is very strong, very riffy post-hardcore. Although I've got differences with how they do vocals, that sort of, like I said, dissonant cleans, low-end screams. I do like it when they overlap, and I like it when bands do that in general. I think it adds just that extra punch and extra energy to any band sound. And the song super comes alive in the final quarter. And it just kind of feels like all the instruments are trying to battle it out, and they do describe themselves as a math rock influenced experimental emo post-hardcore thing. But the math end of it really comes into fruition here, because you do have all different instruments trying to kind of go on their own way and just trying to do their own thing, I guess. And it makes for a really fun end to the song, which leads into My Exit Smile, which is their second song. Really, really stripped back, more emo-y kind of ballad. Vocally, it's still not quite my thing, but like I said, I know this sort of vocal style is a massive appeal to people. I know it was when I was... Fucking hell, I keep hitting this fucking microphone. I know it was when I was a kid. I imagine there's still... Well, of course there's still a market for it. Bands like Alexis on Fire reforming, Thrice are still doing quite well. The Glacier album from a couple of years ago was very, very popular. So that kind of thing still is hugely possible. Popular. With P's, not S's. I know they are very new. Like I said, they've only been going for a few years. They've only got one previous actual release, which is just a single. So it feels really cruel to attack the production, but I think a decent mix on My Exit Smile could have made that song sound massive. And it'll be a thing where it could be something that, if they want to keep that style of ballad in like a major release, I think production would do really well there. And by that I mean like a studio album, not necessarily on a major label. I kind of like for them, for when if they do get signed, to re-record it with more money behind the production, because like I said, I do think that song could be fantastic. So yeah, overall, of the two bands, I think REI has more in common with that early 2000s post-hardcore scene of like Hawthorne Heights, Say a Sin, that kind of thing. Moving on to Chasing South, they are still emo-y post-hardcore, but there's a little bit more punk rock in there. Their first song is called Lost on Me. First thing that struck me was the singer kind of has a similar vocal style to Al Barr from Dropkick Murphys. Yeah, Dropkick Murphys. That sort of like low-end grunt doesn't feel like the right word, but that's you kind of get what I mean. And I thought it was quite interesting to hear, once I made that similarity and I couldn't get that voice out of my head, it was quite cool to hear that kind of voice in with music like this. And there's times where it's hard to know who the vocalist is. It's listed as Chris Lawson is lead singer, which is fair. But all other members of the band contribute vocals. And there's a second vocalist on the verses who he really does sound like he's straining and maybe kind of out of his comfort zone when it comes to the trade-off on vocals. You've got Chris, who's definitely, you can tell what parts of Chris. But yeah, the second vocalist is, there's a bit later on in the song who does some really old school, almost deathcore like low-end growls. And if it's the same guy, I would say just stick to the growls personally. And it's, again, hard for me to say, it's difficult for me to make comparisons when it's completely outside the rest of their discography, because I have no idea what they sound like usually. But yeah, in the verse, it just really sounded like he was really struggling. I'm just going to make weird noises. But yeah, it's just better to stick with, if, like I said, if it's the same vocalist doing the more strange trade-off in the verses as it is the same guy who's doing the growls in the choruses, just stick to what you you're better at, and that is the low end stuff. The chorus as a whole is great. The opening line is kind of a little bit wobbly, and I don't know if that's just because Lawson hasn't quite got the control in his voice or what have you, but I think outside that opening line there is a lot of strength in his voice, and he's a really, really good screamer. And there's a bit, I think, post-chorus where it's kind of like an emotional bass, and he's just going, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Kind of what people want me to do. But the build-up for it, and then right at the end, the really old-school growl, I think works really, really well. And that in turn leads to the final song of Chasing South and of the split. It's called Filaments, which, holy shit, does this song remind me of Zokes. Which is basically Zokes, if you're unaware of them, that is a great band to be compared to. That album from a couple of years ago was so missed by everyone, and it needed to be the best thing that ever happened. It's really offbeat, crunchy post-hardcore. I played it alongside, so I played Filaments alongside the song Bad Blood, and you can really see similarities between them. I think this style of like a full-on shout in Filaments, I think Lawson really, it sounds so much more comfortable like that, where it is a more raw sounding, like I said, shout. I thought that was really, really good. And I was also a fan of like the personal breakdown. I've written that down wrong. No, I haven't. I wasn't a fan of the ending breakdown, just to really confuse everyone then. I had to remember the song in my head then, and I remember, yeah. Brains, aren't they great? Personally, I would have gone without it. Just kept the off-beat, punchy, post-hardcore, and then just, not a fade-off, because I hate fade-offs in song, but basically just a better way to end it. Just, for me at least. Between the two, I do prefer the Chasing South tracks. It is closer to what I used to listen to on the reg. It reminds me closer of, whereas REI is like that early to mid 2000s post-hardcore, Chasing South kind of reminds me of the more later end of the 2000s and early part of the 2010s, the teens, whatever they are. I'm more adverse with that, and I'm more aware of that, and I prefer to listen to that era. Regarding REI, it comes from an era of post-hardcore that I honestly did miss. I got interested after bands like Pierce the Veil, Emma Rosa, Scary Kids, Scaring Kids started ruining it. I'll happily say that, because I had to listen to some of those bands to try and get a way to, for my comparison bit at the end, find them. And they were awful, and they were terrible. And I realise now why the emo scene died, and it makes me very sad. So yeah, I kind of got into it after bands like that ruined it, but not before bands like Thrice and Elixir on Fire branched out and were just better. The whole split is the emo phase reincarnated, and I think it's really good. So I don't know how it is for Chasing South, but reading a lot about REI, they really want to push this. Apparently, like, this phase of post-hardcore completely missed New Zealand, and their battle cry is they want to push it there, and they want to like get this scene more prominent in New Zealand. And fair fucks, all power to them. I think it's a great cause they got going on. Working with bands like Chasing South for releases like this are just imperative. I mean, it's the punk rock way of doing things. If you did want to go check this out, if you were for REI, I would compare them to Thursday, and from First to Last. For Chasing South, I compared them to Pulled Apart by Horses, and honestly, I would compare them as a whole to Zokes, which again, I think Zokes is a great thing to be compared to. But yeah, if you are a fan of that like 2000s post-hardcore in general, I think you'll really go for this. This was REI and Chasing South with their split EP called Graying into Bloom.